Hey ladies, this is Mocha Mommy here bringing you another video. And in this video, I want to give you guys consumer information, okay? This is not healthcare or medical advice, but rather this is consumer information for you as a healthcare consumer on how you can navigate our current healthcare system and this current healthcare climate in regards to your own reproductive health and well-being. I know a lot of times when these conversations are had in our community, there's a lot of shaming tactics involved. So what I want to do is kind of remove the shame, and I want to talk about our cultural practices and the realities that we might face when we go to the medical system for healthcare consumer advice. Again, this is not medical information. This is consumer advice. So there is a new hormone-free birth control option on the market right now. I'm just going to flash it across the screen temporarily because remember, this is not medical advice. This is consumer advice. It's going to start becoming more widely available. And I know that sometimes there is even discussions about even pharmacists being able to give it to patients, sort of like the way the Plan B is. This is not a spermicide, okay? What this is an acidic suppository that can help prevent pregnancy by creating an environment that is not conducive to sperm or even, in some cases, certain bacterias that could be transmitted sexually. So it could be a good option for some. The concern that I want to communicate to you is that as Black women, sometimes we have a relationship to the washcloth, okay? And that relationship to the washcloth can sometimes alter our natural vaginal pH. So if that is a cultural hygiene practice for you, this might not be the right option, simply because you probably have some pH issues. Now, if you do have, and we do know that Black women have some vaginal pH issues because of that relationship to the washcloth, and also the fact that we do, in fact, a lot of us put soap between our labia. I saw this a lot when the PX, the Post Exchange, started offering like Victoria's Secret body wash, a lot of stuff by Bath and Body Works and Bodycology, and Black women were washing and using washcloths to clean. And because the main ingredient in perfume is alcohol, that was killing a lot of their vaginal flora. And as a result, a lot of Black women ended up with yeast infections. And, you know, a lot of times that comes with a lot of shame and a lot of name calling. Y'all dirty ass bitches. Blah, blah, blah. No, it was actually because you were too clean and you threw off your pH, your vaginal pH. So, companies like the Honey Pot, Kitty Candy, Sweet Cookie, a lot of some of your Yanni steaming products have come out, developed by Black women for Black women, because we know that sometimes this is a common practice among Black women. So what I'm trying to say is that if you know that this is a practice that you engage in, this might not be the right one for you. If you do have good vaginal pH protecting practices, this might be an option. Now, shout out to Jerry Seinfeld, because in 1995, episode 9 of season 7 of Seinfeld, he really let Julia Louis-Dreyfus and the writers kind of take the lead on an episode called The Sponge. Basically, his community just was a lot more comfortable with talking about birth control without really shaming. So basically, the contraceptive sponge was being taken off the market, and then the women were kind of rationing sex as a result of the sponges being taken. And so you see like these crazy vetting processes, and it was just a really funny episode. I suggest you guys watch it. But anyway, the fact that they made light of birth control choices just really goes to show that our community has a long way to go. So non-hormonal birth control, this is consumer advice for those of you who want to be consumers of non hormonal birth control. Where we have the issue culturally is we are not very familiar with our vaginal fornix. So this particular sponge right now, it's off the market. It was on the market, then it left again maybe around 2019, 2020. But the effectiveness rate and the lack of effectiveness of things like cervical caps, diaphragms, and contraceptive sponges have a lot to do with Black women and their unfamiliarity with their vaginal fornix and accessing their cervix. Okay. I remember even when I crossed as an adult, I still had line sisters who had still never worn a tampon. And that's not uncommon in our community. So if non-hormonal birth control as a healthcare consumer, you're interested in, what you need to do is make sure that you're familiar with your vaginal fornix. So things like menstrual cups, flex discs, things like that, they don't sell as much in our community because of our unfamiliarity with our vaginal fornix. And those are some of the things that can help get you acquainted with if this type of hormone-free birth control is for you. So my suggestion is that you take that time to explore the insertion and removal and the accessing of your vaginal fornix if you want to use these types of hormone-free birth control as a healthcare consumer. For those of you who do choose to opt for hormonal birth control as a consumer, you may want to ask certain questions when you get in there. Some of the questions that you may want to ask and intervene for yourself is if you are over 5'7". Once upon a time, low dose birth control was all the rage. They wanted everyone prescribing it, and all of the companies were touting its merits, but we were finding that women who had higher BMIs did not have enough of the hormones in their system to regulate to prevent pregnancy. So this is not just those of you who are obese. This is those of you who just might have a higher BMI because you're over 5'7". So you may want to ask if perhaps low dose birth control is right for you. Also, one thing that happens a lot with not just birth control prescriptions, but prescriptions in general is non-formulary. Okay. That's when you have a prescription for a certain pill that is made by a certain manufacturer, and your insurance or Medicaid or will cover it. Well, then another manufacturer may make that drug a little bit cheaper, and then therefore your insurance switches over to that manufacturer. So when you go to your retail pharmacy, you're going to find that, hey, what was once a $10 copay is now $400, $500, $600, $700, right? And a lot of times that has to do with medications going like non-formulary, medications going generic. So, and just basic clerical paperwork. What I suggest is dealing with mail order pharmacies. Mail order pharmacies, especially ones that specialize particularly in birth control. Now, this is just consumer information. So this way, if your insurance company changes something, you switch doctors, you have someone that is specifically focused on just your birth control. Okay. They don't have to deal with all the mess that happens with retail pharmacies, like not having things in stock, or drive-through lines, or making sure that there's enough diabetic test strips at the window. You know, they don't have to worry about that because their whole job is just to be a mail order pharmacy. So that's one of the things that I can suggest to make sure that you stay on your medications, whatever those medications may be, regularly, dealing with mail order pharmacies. Now, this is not medical advice, but we know that a lot of birth control methods are given by either general or family practitioners, and they are jacks of all trades but masters at none. So if you guys are considering IUDs, intrauterine devices, it doesn't matter which one, make sure that you are aware and speak up about the fact that if you have a history or a family history of any underlying uterine inflammatory conditions, such as PCOS, fibroids, endometriosis. We know that 1 in every 7 Black women can be impacted by these processes, these disease processes. So maybe an IUD might not be right for you. If you're not sure if you've had any of these conditions, ask your mother, ask your aunties, ask your sister if they've ever had any of these conditions, because genetically you may be predisposed to it. And an intrauterine device might aggravate that condition in you. So make sure you're aware of your family history of any kind of uterine inflammatory conditions, and make sure you ask your family and speak up about it in doctor's appointments. We've seen all kinds of memes with babies holding IUDs, being born with holding IUDs, or having IUDs underneath their skin as they develop. Just so you know, these things happen. A lot of times they happen in women who have underlying inflammatory conditions. So make it a point to speak up. Now, ladies, this is not me trying to be a negative Nelly, but I just want you guys to be informed consumers. Even with some of these implanted devices or transdermal types of birth control patches or rings, make it a point to let your physician know if you are susceptible to things like keloiding or excessive scarring. That scar tissue could potentially stop the hormone from being released into your system. So if you're likely to develop things like keloids or scarring and hyperpigmentation on your skin that somehow gets calloused, things like psoriasis, eczema, if you're predisposed to some of those conditions, there's some transdermal or implanted birth control devices that might not be right for you. I'm not trying to discourage you guys from using birth control, but I'm trying to get you guys to isolate the ones that would be most effective for your personal situation as a healthcare consumer, because we're just finding that a lot of the high pregnancy terminations in our community has a lot to do with ineffective birth control practices, okay? Not having access to the right types of birth control, not asking the right questions, not having access to specialty practitioners who would know to screen you for any underlying condition that can make a certain form of birth control not right for you. So this is just consumer information so that you can put that information out there and you can start the dialogue. And last but not least, when it comes to condoms, be sure to check expiration dates. Do not buy them in large bulk like a Costco size box, simply because you run the risk of them expiring. And also you want to check the lot numbers and check for recalls if you buy them locally. Listen, it's unfair, but it's the reality that a lot of recalled condoms have been released in our community, particularly ones that have been given out at free clinics and places where people are actively trying to be safe. They're some of the places that are notorious for having recalled condoms. Also, understand that sometimes you or your partner might not be allergic to latex itself. You may actually be allergic to some of the chemical preservatives and some of the carcinogen-ridden chemicals or spermicides that are used on the condoms. So brands like Sustain and Lola make very user-friendly condoms that don't have as much of some of those harmful chemicals that might in fact be the irritants and not the latex itself. So check out Beautiful Brown Baby Doll's video on hygiene and sexual health. I'll link it in the description box because she also has a discount code for Lola. So save yourself some money, help your sis get some coins. And also, it's just really important that we do make purchases moving forward from some of our, check if some of our favorite influencers have affiliate links. That just goes to show that we as a people are supportive of our content creators. And also, it just goes to show that we're interested in having those types of products marketed to us. So make sure you check that out. This is not medical advice, but consumer advice. From Mocha Mommy, and see you in the next one.